Chris Mulcahy, as he was here earlier, as we were bantering about Amazon Prime Day.
It was a solid banter.
But solid banter. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Chris. Okay, we're weather alert.
Yes.
Extreme heat and the potential of flooding this evening.
We're going to put heat behind us because technically for us to really go weather alert for extreme heat, it's usually over 103, but truly you don't really have the heat advisory until 105. I think you could get as much as about 101, maybe 102. And what's interesting is yesterday we actually hit 98 degrees, but only had a peak heat index of 101. Well, today I think you're only going to hit a high of 93, but a peak heat index close to about 101. And what's interesting there is the moisture's come up, and the more moisture the atmosphere usually leads to more storm fuel. So let's get right to it. Double trouble, the double threat for our weather alert. So it's mainly for flooding and severe storms. Here's the deal. Severe storms oftentimes can lead to flooding, but I'm separating these two because I think flooding is the number one. And it's also been a hot button topic here across the United States for several reasons. I can say 3 different states, one here in North Carolina from what happened from Chantal, what happened just recently here in New Mexico where literally you saw a house floating down the river, and of course one of the most tragic flooding events that I've ever seen in my career, what happened in Texas. And what happened there was deemed as a flash flood emergency before things really got going. And these are 3 different levels of a flash flood warning. So these are called impact-based warnings. And by the National Weather Service, they readjusted this back in 2020 to 2021. And this is just to make clarity and see which ones are going to alert your phone. So this is the wireless emergency alert system. And if there's a base flash flood warning that you'll see many times on any of Brad's maps, Brittany maps, whoever is showing it, those happen all the time. But once your phone is notified, that is a considerable flash flood warning. The last one that we had recently was back in late June where we had that one storm that kind of sat around Tyvola Road. Over 5 inches of rain fell. That actually triggered many phones to go off. Also, the flash flood warnings that were happening from the most recent tropical system, Chantal, those also triggered considerable flash flood warnings. Once you get up to flash flood emergency status, you're talking about Helene, Florence, or what happened in Texas. Those are extremely rare, and then that means it's almost a historic flooding event. So I hope to God that you don't ever get caught in one of those, and I really hope that your phones do not go off. But I really am bringing up this point. If your phone is going off, it's for a very good reason, and for you not to ignore it, because that means that life-threatening flooding is within your area. Speaking of Texas, Nick, before I wanted to go any further, I went and got the radar and looped it for what happened in Texas, and to show you the reason why they saw so much rain. So where that X is, that's where the actual Mystic campgrounds were. Notice how that rain moved in during the evening and it just kind of sat there. And here, I'm actually going to pause it. Look really closely how this one little band from the northwest, let me bring up my little pointer tool. So this right here, things are so tiny. My eyesight is not the way it used to be. I apologize. Here we go. So you have this one little storm system right here, and then these storms that all start to converge. And when you have that convergence, that really just amplifies everything right there. So you had it all kind of come up as the perfect storm. At that point, you're having rain rates well over 2 to 3 inches per hour. And some of the most recent estimates we saw there was 12 to 14 inches of rain fell. And I was also looking at the topography here, Nick. This is actually staggering because it wasn't just the Guadalupe River. There's actually the South Fork of the Guadalupe River. And what that means is there's often little tributaries and different branches that come off the main river. Sometimes those can get backed up and bottlenecked. And if you actually look at the Google Maps, you can see some of those campsites, some of those cabins literally right along the river. And check out how fast everything rose. 9 or just over 9 feet at 2:55 a.m. This is in Central Time. 30 minutes later, it was up to 14.9 feet. Then, at the end of the hour, it was up to 20.3 feet. Once it gets up to 26 feet, they say, and this is all based out of at Hunt, the Guadalupe River in Hunt, which is still, I think, over 10 miles away from where the campsite was and where most of the damage was. At that point, they're saying campgrounds and local highways are going underwater. And never before seen at this location, they saw a peak of at 5:10, 37 feet.
Wow.
And before that, it was actually below 5. So it went up You're talking about over 30 feet during this time frame just because everything sat. Think about rivers all flow. It just kind of compounds. It blocks things by different trees and the tributaries. It all flows. And that's why we're still looking for over 170 people. Well, not us personally, but what's happening in the rescue. But I just kind of wanted to stop and really show the magnitude of the worst case scenario of any flash flooding. I'm not saying that we're going to see anything close to this, and you might not see this again in our lifetime. But I was doing a study for this, and this is one of the most staggering things I've ever seen.
And then I think about our friends in north of us in central North Carolina, the Hall River, the Eno River, seeing historic levels right there.
Yep.
I believe it's somewhere in the range of, correct me if I'm wrong, 32 to 33 feet. It's
That's
something
correct.
we haven't seen since 1996, Hurricane Fran. So, yeah, I mean, and I guess I just want to drive home, and you've been driving it home. Make sure you have your phone charged and you have your phone, you have your devices there, because we're here on WCNC Plus. We do our best to get that information out there to keep you safe. So.
Yeah, and that's a really good example, because what happened in Texas, a lot of people might have been getting those flash flood emergencies, and they might have overlooked them, or hey, I'm fine, but then a lot of people just didn't have phones.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about that. So, and their warnings that I was looking at, kind of the time frame, they were warning about things happening around 1 o'clock, but the emergency didn't really go out until 4 o'clock. And 4 o'clock at this point, the river's already at 20 feet. It's already come up 11 feet. That's already swallowed up some areas. So
and you're talking about 1 a.m.
1 a.m. Yeah, 1 a.m. to 4 o'clock. So the warnings were out there, but there's just some events. What can you do? Also the same thing. Like you were talking about a tropical depression to the point for North Carolina's event, Nick, and look at the amount of rain that came from that.
Yeah.
Over 8 inches was estimated in certain areas. It just takes those slow-moving systems, a lot of rain all at once. And if you live near a river or a creek or a stream, Hidden Night Campground back in 2020, oftentimes there's a flood watch that usually is the precursor, knowing that there's going to be excessive rainfall. We do have one for the eastern zones, but yeah, if they see any more rain, we're looking at still a big deal for maybe more considerable flash flood warnings for the central part of North Carolina.
And this stuff is scary, because I've covered flooding numerous times over my career here in the Carolinas, and it is nothing to play with. Nothing that again, it's nothing to play with. It's some scary stuff.
Yeah,
so,
and truly, and Nick, you know this, until you actually see images like this in person, because you're like, oh wow, there's water all the way up to that roof. Oh, there's people in boats. Oh wow, there's cars and houses floating on the river. You notice water is so powerful.
Yeah.
And what is really crazy about some of these most recent events is you can look at rain estimates, and that's why I'm going to show you some with a grain of salt. But realistically, any one of these slow-moving thunderstorms, if you get one after another on a day like today, you can get up to 5 inches of rain, and that could lead to an event like this if it's low-lying along streams or in a flood-prone area. That's another thing to know. You got to know if you're in a flood-prone area, because those images you saw there don't just happen in the middle of a plain. It's usually something else, like a stream or a river, that's going to allow that to happen.
Oh wow.
So, and again, I was showing you all of the other stuff, not to scare, just make you more weather aware. I'm not saying what we saw from Chantal is going to happen here today. I'm not saying that what we saw in Texas is ever going to happen here. But here are some of the estimated rain totals that we have going back to graphics for our rainfall. It's upwards to about 1 to 2 inches through 10 o'clock tonight. And I think that some of these could be as much as 3+ if we get one thunderstorm after another, because the red on the radar can be over 1 inch per hour. The pink on the radar can sometimes be up to 4 inches per hour. Just really depends. Now, leading into tomorrow, notice how it's more widespread. Now, if you have one location that gets 3 inches and another 2 tomorrow, that's almost bringing you back to that same level if it kind of swells some of the creeks. But yeah, look at some of these totals. I think we're getting at least up to 1 to 2 inches across the next couple of days, because these are slow-moving storms. Once it starts raining, if you have heavy rain, you could get it for 1 to 2 hours. And then heading into Friday, I don't really see as much. We're still weather alert that day, but it's not as much. So this slow-moving pattern, you're pumping in tropical moisture. That's going to lead to widespread thunderstorms. This is more of your typical 20% isolated pop-up thunderstorm. Oh, you could have a severe thunderstorm. No, this is ones that you could produce some gusty winds, but then they could sit there. I think really by this evening is where the flood threat is going to be the highest. There's the same area, Nick, that you were talking about. See that area of red? That's where we saw the excessive rainfall over the weekend. Well, all of our area for the most part, is under a yellow, meaning a medium threshold. By tomorrow, it's downgraded. We get rid of the red, but still any areas that see most rain today, if they see it again tomorrow, it could be problematic. And then by Friday, it's still a low chance, but we're really taking our foot off the gas heading into the weekend. Here's that flood watch that goes until 2 a.m. Thursday. This will be extended depending on the rain that we see today, and it's the same areas. Usually, sometimes flooding can lead to more flooding, just depending. Helene would not have been Helene without the 2 days of rain that was prior to it, because truly, a lot of streams were already at major flood stages before it pushed over to historic levels. And we already mentioned some of the rivers that are swollen around Greensboro to Raleigh. That's going to be a big problem with more of these storms. And here's what it looks like on our Futurecast. You're looking at widespread stuff here. This is starting right around the mountains. I'm already seeing storms right now. So right now at this point, there are active thunderstorms in the mountains, and they're starting to blossom across the foothills. This is 3 o'clock. Look, by the end of the afternoon, it really picks up. So this is turning widespread. And it's impossible for me to tell you this community, this location, this county is going to see this much rain. But we are showing there is signs of at least up to 2 inches plus in a few locations according to this rainfall, because it's not really fast moving. I think we see another final push rolling through a little bit later on this evening, and then we're going to rinse and repeat. By tomorrow, I think it's really between about 3 and 9, so I don't think the window is lasting as long into the evening. You're not seeing as much red here on the map. I think the storm fuel is much higher for today, so if there is going to be any big time rain, I think it happens today. I think it could just build on whatever falls today by tomorrow. And then I want to show you Friday. Here's why we might take away the weather alert, or at least I would in my opinion. If it's just very isolated at this point, we'll see, but it really depends on what happens the next couple of days. So next best rain chances today, tonight, widespread. Tomorrow it's likely, but then I think it turns more widespread heading into the evenings. And then Friday it's more of an isolated to scattered nature. But on top of that, as I mentioned, you also have a chance for some gusty winds. You could have some damaging winds getting up to about that 60 mile per hour range. Lower chance come Friday. And then that 98 at least isn't going to be hit. So we mentioned that heat isn't really as much of an issue going forward. Still could feel like 100 degrees. And I think that we'll feel like the upper 90s the next couple of days. And then we're back to the usual 91 to 94. It's hot, it's humid with a chance for an isolated storm. But whenever you get a stationary front, that's where you really have the slow movement. That allows for more storms to pop up. So it's a front nearby, a trough that leads to more of those 30 to 60% chances for rain. This we could see again in the middle of next week.
Oh, man. Chris, thank you for your time, man.
Of course,
I know you did the morning show, came in here, joined us in the afternoon. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I don't get to be here as much, and well, and also it's a bummer too because I'm Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky, but it's just really disappointing that we have now seen 3 huge flooding events, especially one closer to home. And again, I'm not saying that's going to happen today, but then you just see more heavy rain that potentially could impact those areas.
You just never know. You never know. You'd rather be safe than sorry. Chris, thank you. Go and get some sleep, man.
Dude, of course, dude.
All right. That's Chris Mulcahy.